I feel like every small town has like really cool legends attached to it. I like exploring that because there's so much really interesting stuff that happens in small towns that people never know about. So for me, it's kind of cool to do this interview with you, and it takes me back to like the reasons as to why I'm still doing this, and I'm still trying to search for evidence of some sort of afterlife or get answers. But it's cool to be in this building and to, like, I started, here. It's neat. I love it.
Yeah.
It brings attention to Altoona in like a positive light.
Today's episode is brought to you by Charlie's Tree Service.
They were voted the hometown favorite from the Altoona Mirror as the best tree service provider. I've known Travis DeArmond, the owner, since we were riding bikes on Juniata Gap Road. If you ever have storm damage, if you have trees down in your yard and you want to handle that mess safely, give them a call. If there's a tree down on your house, that's a dicey situation and probably not something you should handle yourself. They'll safely remove everything, clean it up, or even better yet, don't wait till the storms come. Do some preventative maintenance.
Give Charlie's Tree Service a call. They made this episode possible.
Heather,
Scott!
class of 04.
Yeah, 2004. We just
here
had
we
our
are.
20-year reunion.
The reunion.
last
yeah,
year.
I know. What brings you back to Altoona?
I'm here for my niece and nephew's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle birthday party.
Oh my gosh, I just watched that movie
Did
this
you?
week. Where did you grow up in Altoona?
I grew up right near Ebner School.
Okay.
So back by the Horseshoe Curve, that area. It was a really nice neighborhood to grow up in because weirdly enough, down the street from me were like 4 girls my exact age that I'm still friends with, like all of them today. So we always had something to do in the neighborhood with a bunch of kids running around. So
Nice.
yeah.
What were your hobbies growing up?
Oh my. Roller skating, rollerblading, playing street hockey. My friends and I always made these like skits. Like I would take my mom's video camera and we would make these like ridiculous like sketch comedy skits, and we would put on weird costumes and run around the neighborhood and just basically entertain all my neighbors. That's why I always knew I would be doing something in film or TV, because I literally grew up with like a video camera attached to my hand, just filming, documenting my everyday life. Besides that, I was always outside in the woods because I grew up with the woods in my backyard. So doing a lot of hiking, just kind of getting lost in the woods and then trying to make it back to my house before dark.
When was the first time you, I guess, had intentionally went out or accidentally went out and had some sort of, I guess, experience that made you, I don't know, feel like there's something other to this world?
Yeah, well, I think growing up, I didn't grow up in a haunted house. I was always very fascinated by ghost stories. Anything relating to aliens and ghosts, I thought it was such a thrill, and I wanted to find out why people had these experiences, and I personally wanted to always put myself in a situation to have experiences.
Yeah.
So starting in, I think, like junior high, every weekend, I would kind of drag my friends to different places like cemeteries and places that were rumored to be haunted. And I was really fascinated by the mythology surrounding the Ouija board, which, if you really research it and dive into the history of it, it was created as a form of entertainment, as like a parlor game. It was supposed to be like, I know one of the early ads was like a couple on a date playing a Ouija board. But when The Exorcist came out, it developed this really evil reputation. So growing up, my brother had a Ouija board, and he would always tell me him and his friends would have these experiences. So every weekend, I would take my friends on these excursions in junior high, high school, and we would just go to places and try to play the Ouija board to get something to happen. Nothing would ever really happen.
Nah.
My cousin and I played it a couple times. We had like one weird thing happen, but I think it's just, first of all, it's a piece of cardboard, but I think people have developed this like evil mythology around it. And I just became obsessed with the fact that like people could use it to communicate with the dead, even though I don't really think that's true. But so I think learning about the Ouija board, and then just like growing up in Altoona, there really wasn't much to do. So my friends and I had to create our own entertainment.
Right.
So that consisted of me planning out like a weird skit we could do being like a director and going to just random places and filming us doing weird things and trying to play the Ouija board.
Yeah.
So, but nothing significant ever really happened when I would try to go and look for ghosts.
Yeah.
So,
You had mentioned there's a couple places around town that, I mean, at least when I was growing up here, you hear the stories. Obviously, the White Lady.
the White Lady was a big one on Wapsie Mountain. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I grew up on Juniata Gap Road, so
Oh, you
it's
did?
literally the road I live on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the White Lady of Wapsie was a huge legend here, and my dad claims that he saw it a long time ago.
A lot of people do.
He was driving and he saw her walk across the street, and another car saw it as well, and they even saw dust from it.
Yeah.
So that story, I grew up with that story kind of like stuck in my head, but my cousin and I would always drive up there late at night and try to look for her, because we thought, maybe we'll see the White Lady, but we would try to look for her, and we had this ridiculous idea, and I'm so glad we never went through with this, but we had this idea to find an old wedding dress, and I would wear it and film like cars' reactions to me.
Yeah.
But then we thought about it a little bit more, and I was like, that's really dangerous. We should draw the line somewhere with our antics. So I never did that, but I think just growing up hearing that story, and then you hear stories about the Horseshoe Curve and the tunnel. So my friends and I used to like pile like 15 girls into my friend's Jeep Cherokee, go into the tunnel. You're supposed to like turn off your car and flash your lights 3 times or something. I don't even remember. There's so many different like renditions of the story, but I remember doing that, and it was before they had a traffic light, and my friend's car wouldn't start back up. So we were like
Oh my gosh. you
high school girls
suck.
screaming in this tunnel, and like then it finally started back up. But the Horseshoe Curve was a big one for me because I just felt like it was so eerie and creepy back there. So I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time in the woods back there and walking on the trails and just kind of like trying to find any information on if any of those stories were true.
Yeah.
Other than that, there was a cemetery in Tyrone
Right.
called Bachman Cemetery. And the only story I remember is that a man hanged himself in the tree, and you were supposed to see like his shadow or something. But I associated that area with this, in the late 1800s, there was a circus train that had wrecked.
Right.
And all these animals got loose. And I could have sworn that there was a legend where people would see like ghost horses or like an animal of some sort. But I don't know in relation to where that crash is, where it is, like in relation to the cemetery.
Yeah.
But that was a big place because it was back this road through a neighborhood, and then it was just this little cemetery back in the woods,
Yeah.
just like hiding back there. But really creepy. But I remember taking like carloads of people back there and just trying to scare each other and freak each other out.
Yeah.
So that's where all of this began, like in
Yeah.
Altoona. That's where all of this began. I never ever really thought that ghost hunting would turn into some sort of career. Like never imagined that.
Yeah.
So
It did though.
it did. It's pretty wild.
How did it begin?
So I went to Penn State University and I studied film and French, and I did my first 2 years at the Altoona campus, and I was sitting down in one of the buildings to study for a French test, and literally on the table, the Daily Collegian, which is like the Penn State newspaper, was opened up to this spread about this paranormal club backed by the university at the main campus. It was called the Penn State Paranormal Research Society. And they put on this huge academic paranormal conference called UNIVCON. And it was just an article about the club and everything. And it had like, we meet every Sunday, and they go on these weekend cases where they'll go to haunted places.
Yeah.
So for me to realize that there was something like that I could just go to and have and basically gain access to go to haunted locations, I was like, I'm saving this article, and when I transfer up to Penn State the next year, I'm gonna go to these meetings, and I did.
Yeah.
I still have the article and everything, but it's just the weirdest thing. Like I sat down at this table, and the article was just like there for me to see it.
Yeah.
So I started going to meetings, didn't know anybody, and it was just a building on campus where the tables all faced each other, and people would just share their experiences. We would talk about like different, famous haunted houses in history, and it was just like a group of weird people just talking about these weird things that I wanted to talk about. So I kept going to the meetings, and about the 5th or 6th meeting, I noticed this new face in the room. There was this guy with a beard sitting next to like this huge stack of pamphlets. And I was like, who's this guy? And he was a producer. I had no idea, but A&E had been in the process of making like a docuseries where they follow this club around helping families in haunted houses. So I had no knowledge of this. And the new face in the room was a producer they were going to start casting for this series. And I was really impressed by the club because the guy that started it was super intelligent. He knew exactly what he was doing. And to join the club to be like a field investigator, you had to go through this training process where you had to write reports, you had to learn famous cases, different processes. You have to learn about like psychology. I was really impressed by that because it was like, I started like, the training process, and it had like a 75% dropout rate because it was so hard. But I was like so into it, and like so many people wanted to be in this club, but they couldn't handle like the workload.
Yeah.
And I was like so into it. And I remember it was like adding another class onto my curriculum that I obviously didn't get credit for, but I just wanted to do it so that I could be an investigator. Because once you were an investigator, you got to go on to these cases and you got to go to haunted places, which I was like, I didn't have access to these places. So I was like, this is how I'm going to get into these places. So after that meeting where the executive producer was there, I noticed that they started putting all these flyers around Penn State at the main campus. It was like, do you want to go to some of the most haunted locations in the world? A&E's casting for the series based on the Penn State Paranormal Research Society. So I filled out the pamphlet, and then I kind of forgot about it because my workload for school was just insane. So I was really focused on trying to graduate and figuring out what I was going to do, because I kind of had no idea. So I filled out the pamphlet, and then I got a call saying that the producers wanted me on the show. And at the time, I was playing in this like rock band, and I think they just literally thought I was like a weirdo. Like, that's why. They were like, she's gonna be good on TV. She's good on camera. She's weird. Like, she's definitely the kind of person that gets into this for the thrill of it.
Yeah.
Which was true. So pretty soon there were, the camera crew came to my apartment. They were like filming me in my apartment, like studying and all this stuff. And then I got 2 weeks later, I found out they wanted me like as a regular cast member on the show. So in the club, I met a girl named Katrina Weidman, and we became best friends like immediately. Like that day we met, we were like, we each sat beside each other because we liked each other's shoes, which is so funny.
Yeah.
So we're still best friends, and we work on projects today, but her and I were the only two that stuck through the training process, and they saw we were serious, so we were the only two. Besides the people that were already like longtime members of the club, we were the only two that got cast for the show. But it's crazy to think about. And then like 2 months later, we started filming, and our first director was this guy named Bradley Beasley, who grew up, I think in Oklahoma, where he grew up knowing the Flaming Lips, the band The Flaming Lips. And I found out he directed like a lot of their videos.
Okay.
So for me, being like a huge music fan, I was like, I get to work with the guy who directed the Flaming Lips videos. Like, this is so cool. So for me, growing up in such a small town and then traveling the country and meeting all these like cool people in production from LA and New York, and it was incredible. Like, it was probably the coolest thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a break.
But yeah, it all started from joining this club at Penn State. And what's very fascinating is the club kind of gained media recognition because in 2001, there was a girl in State College named Cindy Song who went missing on Halloween. You probably remember.
Yeah.
When we were in like high school. I remember it because it was like all over the news. And Ryan, who had started PRS, the Penn State Paranormal Research Society, he contacted the detectives and suggested that they use a psychic to try to find this girl. And so that became the basis for a show called Psychic Detectives that none of us were involved in, but that was kind of based off of our club. But so that kind of put the club in the spotlight. And not only that, but we ran this like huge conference where like top researchers in the field that I grew up reading about were guests at, and I got to go, and like I started volunteering at the conference, and like just so that I could see all these people that speak that I grew up, reading about. So that caught the attention of this Emmy award-winning producer who got the idea to make a series about the club. So they would film us, and I was a junior in college when we started filming. So like every weekend I would be gone, and I'd have to email my French teacher and be like, I have to go to help this family. Their house is haunted. But luckily, like all my classes were media related and film and French related. So they were all really cool about it. But I think back to that and like, I don't know how I juggled all of that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. But we had an office in State College where we would get emails from families all over the country that thought that their house was haunted. And back in the early 2000s, the topic of ghosts was still kind of taboo. It's definitely not like it is now. So a lot of people were afraid to, not only did they not understand what was going on in their house, but they were afraid to tell anybody. Right. So we were these college kids that would just go bring like a production team of 20 people and go into these people's houses and live there for like 3 days and just be the person that they talked to. And we basically helped these families that had these haunted houses. And it was a very rewarding experience. Because we just met so many different people, and it kind of put me in a situation to just be in these haunted, like really historical homes. And sometimes it wasn't always paranormal, which was more fascinating to me to try to figure out why people were having experiences when, it wasn't a ghost or a spirit.
Right.
So it was a really good learning experience. And being on Paranormal State has led me to being on all these other different shows.
Yeah, kind of launched it.
What?
Kind of like launched you into the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because Paranormal State, at the time when we were doing it, we had no idea it would be this huge show. No one knew. I mean, like there's episodes where we're wearing like the same clothes. We didn't even like brush our hair and didn't even shower. Like we didn't think anything of it. It was just like what we were passionate about is what we did. And then the network order, I think our first order for episodes was like 22 episodes, which was like a big deal. They really like believed in the show. And like I said, the main guy on the show, Ryan, was just really good at working with people. And he was just really good on camera. And I think production, everyone was really impressed by him because we were so serious about what we were doing. But it turned out that Paranormal State became kind of like an influential show. It was kind of the start of paranormal television, right behind Ghost Hunters. So it's kind of cool to think back and think like I was a part of that. Yeah. Because there's shows on today that are definitely like influenced by Paranormal State, and there's people, I do these conventions all over the country and people come up to me and they're like, oh, my mom and I used to watch your show. We love it. It got us into this subject. So when I think about it, it's just so bizarre how all this turned out. So. Do
you have like a standout experience that happened during that? Like that?
Oh man. I think for me, it was finding out like they would take us to New York City to A&E Network, and we would see Paranormal State ads on these buses. And they had this billboard in New York City on the side of this building. And it was kind of the first time they tried to do this, but it had this technology that like, if you walked on a certain path of it, it would whisper in your ear and it would say, what was that? Or like, did you see that? Really creepy. I didn't get to see it in person, but that was how big the show got. Like we had a giant billboard on the side of a building in like the Lower East Side. Like it's crazy. But I think for me, the coolest part is just is being able to go to the places I've been to, whether it's like exploring a city or going to like a really small town in the middle of nowhere. Like I've just been through like a bunch of unique experiences from this.
I think there's a lot of people that would say, pay for me to travel all over the country. Like, that's the dream job.
It really is. And what's really cool is like finding out people you admire in life are fans of the show that you're on. For instance, this is just an insane story. So I grew up loving the band Jane's Addiction, all-time favorite band. Dave Navarro, favorite guitarist. And I found out that he was a fan of the show.
Oh, wow.
And my friend had reached out. I didn't know. And she was like, Heather Taddy from Paranormal State is a big fan, and this is going to be, next week it's going to be her 13th time seeing your band. And he literally responded, because he used to respond to people a lot on Twitter, and he responded, oh, I know Heather, I've always had a crush on her. And I was just like, what? Like, so insane.
Wow.
So I got to meet him, hang out with him, stand on the side of the stage for a couple of Jane's Addiction shows, and that to me was like the coolest part of all
amazing.
This. Yeah.
Jeez.
It's just like like when it's happening, it's surreal, but then you're kind of like, it's not really that big of a deal because we're all just people, you know?
Yeah.
Like he got into a unique experience being in this band. I got into this experience being on the show. It's just kind of like it changes your perspective on things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For those that aren't familiar with Paranormal State,
Mm-hmm.
can you describe, like I've watched episodes.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing in the episodes
Yeah,
when you're
good question.
investigating something?
So on Paranormal State, we would go to families' homes that they thought their houses were haunted. Something was going on in their home that either frightened them or just they needed validation for experiences. So we would go in and do a lot of different, we had a lot of different interview processes, even before we chose the case, then pitched it to production and then go to the location. We would do like on-camera interviews with the clients just to try to figure out like, is there something in their life that's stressful that is kind of triggering this activity? Because that can in fact happen, where if you're going through a really stressful time in your life, you can psychokinetically move things. So we would go in, we would set up surveillance cameras, we would do historical research on the property, we would contact previous owners of the houses, set up tech equipment. We worked with various different psychics that would come in and do walkthroughs. So I did a lot of historical research. I filmed kind of behind the scenes stuff. I was the person that always had a camera on me, and I'd be filming stuff that the TV cameras kind of maybe couldn't get. So we would basically just go in, interview families, live with them for a couple days, and try to just get them some answers, which is really tough in a way because in the paranormal field, we don't really have all the answers to everything. But there are consistencies throughout cases that kind of you can kind of work with to try to figure out what is going on in a house. So
did you get a lot of people, I guess, thanking you for what you did? Was there closure brought from a lot of these episodes?
Definitely, yeah. And that was a really rewarding experience to be able to actually just help strangers. You know, it was amazing because, you know, a lot of these families were terrified to even sleep in their own house. Like a lot of things that happen in houses, maybe the wife was a believer, but the husband didn't believe, and it would mess up their marriage. And just a lot of stuff would happen. A lot of times we worked with kids that were terrified to live in their own house. The original concept of Paranormal State is very different from what it became.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be us going to parties, partying, and then going on the weekends to help these, or not to help the families, but just going to like see what they were experiencing. But then when they saw the way that we carried ourselves and the way that we were so serious about everything, we had a process for everything. The first episode I filmed was a case called Dark Man from season 1. And this woman had lost her son and needed closure with that. And she thought her son was still sticking around in their house. And there's a lot more to that story, but she said something. Ryan would always have like a sit down with the family at the end of our episode. And she said something like, you know, you guys don't really realize how much you're helping people. And then that kind of changed the direction of the show.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they were going to like film, you know, the whole crew like coming to see my band play in State College, and then us going to parties and things like that. And I'm so glad that it didn't turn out.
Yeah, the
turn out that
tone
way.
completely changed with that.
Because the creators of our show created Laguna Beach.
Oh, is that right?
So yeah.
Okay.
So it would have been like,
That
it would have
vibe.
been, yeah.
It's
Which
been
I'm
a little
so
bit
glad.
different.
Because they casted us. Like I really got along with the one guy, and my friend got along with the other guy. So they kind of casted us in a way that they wanted us to like be boyfriend and girlfriend, which
okay.
didn't happen, thank God. But it's just like, yeah, it's funny to see what it became.
Yeah. Producers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard stories that you
Yeah.
know,
The one thing about Paranormal State that I can say is, you know, a lot of the paranormal shows, producers get you to fake stuff or they exaggerate things. And Ryan was so adamant that we not do that because we had to stay truthful to ourselves and to these families we were helping. So they would try to get us to fake stuff. And Ryan would be like, I'm walking if you do. And we were like A&E's #1 show for a long time. So they kind of were like, yeah, we're not going to try. But we have had people, you know, producers. One time I was in the production van and there was an interview happening with the client, and the client started to cry. And one of the producers didn't know I was in the car and like started cheering and high-fived one of the other producers.
Yikes.
And I was just like pretended it didn't even happen, but yeah, I don't know what else to say about that.
The time from Paranormal State to where we're at now, what happens in between that?
In between that, okay, so I left Paranormal State after season 4 because there was a lot of drama with the show and it wasn't fun for me anymore. So I left, and then I kind of for a while, I didn't really want to be associated with it because there was a lot of stuff that happened with the main guy on the show.
Yeah.
So I worked for Hot Topic for a very long time, for like 13 years, starting it when I was like 16, and maintained to be like working for the company, even though I worked there like maybe once a month when I was filming and things, because I wanted to keep my 40% discount. And we got reimbursed for concerts, so I kind of like milked that for a really long time. But after Paranormal State, I didn't really know what to do. I still did some events here and there, but in terms of like the paranormal genre in television, it kind of goes through waves. So when I left at that time, there wasn't really a lot going on. Like they continued 2 more seasons, and then Paranormal TV just was kind of at a standstill. So when it got ramped back up, I did get asked to do a lot of different shows because, me and Katrina were kind of the only 2 females at that time. Besides the chick from Ghost Hunters, we were kind of the only females kind of in the field. So I got asked to do a lot of different shows, and some of them I'd go film pilots for, and then nothing would happen. But I worked for Hot Topic. I managed $1 million stores all throughout, like every Pittsburgh store I worked at one point. And my, I guess, next career path was to move to California and work at their headquarters to be like maybe like a fashion buyer or something. Because I just really liked working for the company. It's obviously changed a lot now, but it was a really fun job to maintain through all that time. And then 2017, 2018, I got contacted to do a show that actually went through called Alien Highway, which I worked with this researcher named Chuck Zukowski, who was a former deputy sheriff, and he got fired for a case that he thought was paranormal that had to do with like an animal mutilation case that's really common with UFO sightings. So he's a researcher for that, and the government will actually contact him because there's these ranchers out west, Midwest, where their cattle will mysteriously either go missing or like be mutilated in a way that it looks like there's surgical incisions, and there's no signs of struggle, no blood. It happens with a lot of different livestock, and a lot of times when this happens to ranchers, they're really puzzled because they've been in a family for generations that like they know cattle, and they see UFOs when it happens. Like there's always a sighting attached with it, which is weird. So that's always been associated. So Chuck, Alien Highway was based off of a book called The 37th Parallel, which is about Chuck's life being a researcher, and that's kind of where the idea for Alien Highway came. And it was really cool because we worked with an executive producer from Paranormal State, and we worked with some of the story editors that I had never met before. So it was really cool to kind of connect with them years later, and they had, had seen all this footage of me in college, and I finally get to like meet them. And they're like, we've been watching footage of you for years, and we finally get to meet you. So that was kind of a cool experience. But Alien Highway was a really fun series. We did 1 season. We were getting ready to do season 2, and there was a merger at Discovery and Travel, and it kind of messed up everything at the network. And they're still going through that, where they just don't know what they're doing, which is why a lot of paranormal shows are getting canceled. So after Alien Highway, I started doing more events because the show did pretty well. We had pretty good ratings. So I started to do more events and conventions where, some events are held at like convention centers in different cities, and it's just a bunch of paranormal celebrities that are on different shows, and we hang out. Sometimes there's a ghost hunt involved if it's held at a paranormal location. But the events are really fun because you get to meet people that watch the shows and, get feedback from them on like current projects that you're doing. So I started to do a lot of events, and then I guest starred on a couple episodes of this show for the CW called Mysteries Decoded. There's actually 2 or 3 more episodes I did that haven't even aired yet for their season 3 that I filmed like 2-3 years ago. But that's a show on the CW that kind of just explores life's greatest mysteries. So I got to go to Puerto Rico for that, and we did an episode on the Jersey Devil, and we did another UFO episode. But that was a fun show. And then I did a couple episodes for Portals to Hell, which my best friend Katrina was on. Their season 2, I did a couple episodes with Jack Osborne, which was really fun. And now currently I produce and film a web series on YouTube called Travel the Dead with Katrina Weidman. And we are trying to kind of move forward with that to be able to travel further across the country to film, because we're self-funded right now. So if you just search Travel the Dead on YouTube, you can watch, I think we have like 7 or 8 episodes up.
And what are you doing in that?
So we just, we get emails and messages from people all over the country that either have haunted locations, or maybe it's a residential case, so they live in a haunted house, and they want us to go there and just see what happens. They want us to go there and investigate. So we have a whole spreadsheet of lists of places we are asked to go. One of them is actually a case in Tasmania. So we're self-funded, so it's a team of 3 people. We work with a director out of Rochester, New York, and he edits everything. I edit all the outtakes, and me and Katrina produce and host it. So it's just us going to haunted locations and exploring different theories, because on paranormal TV shows, there's a huge, the paranormal is kind of misrepresented in a way, because you can't have like a specific formula for every case that you do, because every case is so dynamically different. So we're taking that into account to make each episode different and exploring like different theories that come along with like equipment, psychics, whatever it may be. But it's doing pretty well right now, and it's really fun to not have to answer to a network and to be able to have the freedom to do whatever we want.
Yeah.
So
I think YouTube's the way to go.
So that's what I'm focusing on right now, and then we're trying to find a distribution company internationally to try to get it over there.
Nice.
So
that's awesome.
yeah.
20 years, I suppose, kind of, career-wise.
Yeah.
You probably have the most unique...
I know I do. I really do.
With all the experiences that you had, can I ask, what do you believe?
So if you look back, like since the beginning of recorded history, people have had these strange experiences. I'm actually very skeptical, believe it or not. I've had a lot of experiences that I cannot explain, that kind of not necessarily freaked me out, but made me think, okay, maybe there's more to this. So I think that if you want to know my theory on what a ghost or a spirit is, because we truly don't even know what a haunting is. There's elements that make up a haunting, but in reality, you can't take a paranormal experience and duplicate it or replicate it in a lab. So to me, I think it has to do with imprints. Like very tragic situations can leave an imprint on a space, and certain people can come into that space and we don't know how, but set it off, almost as if the imprint of energy is like a loop of like a TV show or something, where something triggers it to loop, but it's stored in the environment. It's stored in the brick or whatever that location is. So there's many different theories as to what people think a ghost or a haunting is. And one theory that has always resonated with me, that has made the most sense, is called the stone tape theory, where areas where there's been like really intense tragic situations, somehow that energy gets imprinted into an environment. And certain people that come into that space, it sets it off somehow. We don't know what discharges the energy, but it sets off and it almost is like a loop. We call it residual energy. That's the term for it. So like a lot of patterns you see with hauntings are people move into like a very historic building, they start remodeling and changing the environment, and then they realize weird things start to happen. They might see a man walk down a hallway every certain time of the day. So I think depending on the situation, that energy can get trapped into an environment. That's kind of the theory that's always made the most sense to me. A lot of other people think it's like a different, almost like a parallel universe or dimension these things kind of peek through somehow. We don't know.
I've been freaked out before, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I've been like around 18 to like 22, like I don't know, like I was definitely I was kind of paranoid, I guess.
Where were you living?
At home.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, like when I'd come home from college, like I lived above my dad's garage, and I used to just lie in bed like awake, like thinking I was hearing things, thinking people were outside. I don't know what it was, but I know I've been very, very scared to the point like that I thought something was happening, and there was no explanation for it.
See, I think there's something to that, because
Yeah.
why? Have you ever tried to do any historical research?
On my dad's house?
Yeah. Do you know anything about what's happening?
It's an older house. It's like a doctor's house. I don't know if anything. There was a railroad in the backyard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the most fascinating thing to me, is like going into these historical places and just like trying to piece together things. There's been times on particular cases where we worked with this one little boy who, like, he literally saw dead people. He just said, like, he would describe these people he saw, and he moved into this townhouse and saw the spirit of this boy, described him perfectly, and the spirit would say to him something about, like, why'd they tear the trees down or something. And he always said the spirit had something around its neck, but he didn't know what it was. And it turns out he was seeing this spirit of this kid named Timmy, who lived on the property. His parents had passed away, and I guess he went into the woods behind the house and shot himself. And then they cleared the woods, and that's when I guess they found him. But we took a photograph of like a wedding party, and Timmy was in the photo. And we showed it to the little boy, and he was like, "That's him." He immediately pointed him out. That freaks me out
Yeah.
the most, right?
Yep.
The weirdest part, the little boy said Timmy always had something around his neck, headphones. He always had headphones around his neck. The neighbors told us, and in the picture he had headphones around his neck.
Oh my God.
Yeah. How does that,
Yeah.
like, how, there has to be something to like psychic ability, ESP, that little kid would be tapped into that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you explain? That's, to me, like, when I hear things like that, I'm just like, there has to be something. Another thing that really made me a believer was going into a house and, you know, hearing the people that live there, hearing their experience. They see a specific woman, or they have a very specific experience they haven't really told anybody. And then you contact the previous owners who were there like decades before them and interview them. And they're like, "Oh yeah, when I lived there, I saw this woman that would like do something." And how do you match up those experiences when those owners haven't communicated?
Right.
And they describe the same exact thing. There has to be something to it.
Yeah.
So, but I also think that there's a lot of natural things that happen that people roll as they think it's paranormal, but it's just natural.
Right. Have you ever been like alone by yourself in a situation where you were
100%.
Yeah.
So on Paranormal State, I was the person that always volunteered to be in the most haunted area by myself with just a camera. Because I wanted, like, to me, a lot of people are scared of this stuff. And I can understand why it's scary. But if you really think about it, it's very fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And like, what is going to happen in that situation besides me getting scared? I'm not going to get like murdered or anything. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I volunteer to put myself in these situations. And one time we were at this house, it was in this old mining town. I think it was outside of Pittsburgh. And they think that the great-grandfather was haunting the place. And he was very abusive to his wife that lived there. And the wife actually saw the grandfather because she knew who he was and saw him. So she was having a lot of experiences there. And I was in the basement, and there was another team up on like the 3rd floor. And I was down there with my camera. And this is the first time this has happened to me, but behind me there was like a boiler room. And I felt this, like, after being down there for so long, I started to feel this like threatening presence behind me. And there's no other way, like kind of what you were saying, you just feel something that's not right.
Right.
I was feeling that, and it was so intense that I wanted to run upstairs, but in my head I was like, you know, they're gonna put this is gonna be on TV, you running up these stairs, maybe falling down the stairs, like, just keep your cool, Heather. And I did.
Yeah.
And it eventually went away, but the moment when I started to feel that, it coincided with something that was happening upstairs. So I've definitely been in moments like that. And you get freaked out a little bit, but then after it happens, I'm kind of like, I want it to happen again because
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
how do
That's
you
a
explain
rush.
it? Yeah, it is. Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
rush. Yeah, that feeling for me never goes away, no
Yeah.
matter where I'm at. But have you ever had any experiences anywhere else?
Not recently. It's not. I don't know. I feel like my life's become so boring.
Oh, I'm sure it's not boring.
Like I'm trying to think. Growing up, I was just remembering one of my daughter's. I guess you call her a babysitter. She's a family friend, but she walked her to the playground past where my grandparents used to live, and she said like she pointed out the house. My daughter's like, she would have been like 3.
Yeah.
And she like, I mean, she'd never been there before in her life.
Oh.
The house has been sold years ago, but when they walked by it, like she like stopped and like identified like that's
Wow.
a significant house.
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Huh. Now it makes you wonder, like, why did she do that?
I don't know. I don't know.
3 years old?
Yeah. And I mean, she was, the family friend was legitimately like, not freaked out, but like very convinced that like, my daughter knew somehow that was our grandparents' house.
That's interesting. Wow.
Something about children.
Yeah, children, I've worked with a lot of children and they say that like they're more open. The idea is that they're more open psychically to this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it because like I've worked with incredible psychics, some of the best in the country, and they say it's just something you're born with, but you just have to learn how to develop it. And a lot of people that have like near-death experiences, that can trigger something to where they have experiences or that's something in that their psychic ability like opens up.
Yeah.
But yeah, kids have always been more susceptible to those experiences, I guess.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think, I guess if you're more open-minded, you're less jaded.
Yeah.
I definitely believe like the mind's a powerful thing, and the more open-minded you are, the more you can let in, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
What about you?
What about me?
Psychic experiences or anything like that?
No. I wouldn't say I've tried to like develop it, but no luck. But I'm very good at like going into a space and kind of feeling it out for a while. And some spaces I just get like a vibe, like a bad vibe where I just don't want to be in a space. It doesn't happen too often, but I'm very good at just kind of going into a location, kind of knowing in a way, which I guess that could be my intuition, but I don't know. I wonder like people that actually see spirits on like a daily basis and communicate them, like, I don't know how they don't shut it off.
Yeah.
Like, how do you shut something like that off and deal with it every day? I know I've asked my friends that before, and it's just like, they're just so used to it. It's nothing to them now. So
Yeah.
I think if I saw, like, I've never seen an apparition. Like, I've seen a shadow figure in a prison that I was investigating. I saw like a shadow figure, but I've never been able to see someone where I can like pinpoint what they're wearing or what they looked like or do like a sketch of them. I've never been able to see anything like that. And I think that if I did, then I would be like 100% believer, you know? And it's surprising that I haven't out of all the locations I've been in. But that's kind of my goal still, is to see an apparition. And then I'll probably be like, okay, I'm done. I saw the apparition of the person, Anna Baker, here.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm done. There she is back there.
Yeah. Speaking of Baker Mansion.
Yeah. This
You're
is
gonna be
my
here.
first time inside Baker Mansion. It's incredible. Yeah, I can't wait to go in like every room.
Yeah.
But it's like the historical artifacts and things. It's really cool. And I've never, I grew up like, obviously I grew up like 10 minutes from here. So obviously I knew some of the story relating to the history. But I remember my friends and I just late at night, like driving around and just like walking around the property and like trying to look in the windows. But yeah, this is the first time I've ever actually been in here.
Okay.
But I did bring some ancient artifacts with me today. And this is a picture of me and my friend. I was probably like 16 or 17 trying to get in the front door of Baker Mansion.
Nice.
So there I am there. And then this is me right outside the building, hiding in the bushes.
Yeah.
don't
You
know
look a little bit different.
what I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah, I do. But yeah, I've never been able to come into this place. But what's really ironic about this whole situation is that I'm doing an event at Baker Mansion in September, and it's going to be the first publicized like investigation here.
Yeah.
So me and my friend Michael Angus are doing that September 20th.
I guess what's your role that day? What will you be?
So we're starting the night off with like a meet and greet, just hang out with people. I imagine I would know most of the people coming, but maybe there's some new faces, I don't know. So a meet and greet, hanging out, and then there's like a little cocktail hour, and then with like some appetizers and things. And then me and Michael are doing like a joint presentation because Michael is also from Altoona. So it's like an Altoona native night. So we're going to discuss how we got into the field, what we do now, and maybe like theories of what we think ghosts are. Yeah. And then we're going to do a 3-hour ghost investigation. We're going to split everybody in groups and just go into different rooms, and people will probably have equipment, and we'll just hang out and talk about the history and just try to investigate.
Yeah. A place like this, it's historic.
Yeah.
A lot more lives, I guess, have been lived in here. Is there something to like just like historic places having more activity or more instances where people report things?
I think so, yes, because think about all the people that have passed through here, and I'm sure there's been some tragedy. With the story that I know with Baker Mansion is that Elias Baker's daughter, Anna, wanted to marry someone that worked for her father, but her father didn't approve of the marriage and didn't approve of her dating him. And I think they were going to try to get married. They tried to hide the relationship, and then Elias finally like moved the guy to like another steel plant or something. So Anna was heartbroken, and it said that she like went crazy in here, and her wedding, I don't know if it's her wedding dress that's here, but it supposedly moves. That's kind of all I know about what happens here. But it just seems like if you want a reason or speculate a reason as to why someone would like stick around a place, maybe they're like attached to the property in some way. Obviously with her, maybe her grief is keeping her here. Yeah. And she's still really sad, and it's just, everything's just kind of replaying in a loop of her not being able to marry her love. So I don't know, there's so many different theories, but it just does seem like the older the location, the more stuff that has happened there, it's haunted. There's a lot of cool history, especially with like the Horseshoe Curve.
Yeah.
So one thing I didn't mention is that in between seasons for Paranormal State, I worked at the Railroaders Museum and at Horseshoe Curve.
Oh, okay.
I worked there, and the TV show Ghost Hunters, their very first episode was in Altoona. It was at a residential home, and they filmed at the Railroaders Museum. So that's how I knew it was haunted. So I worked there, and I was in there a lot of times by myself, especially in the morning. And nothing really ever significant happened, but I ran like the gift shop, and I would go down to the basement where the safe was, and I always got like a really strange feeling down there. But I think previous people that worked in there said that things would like fly off the shelf, and it was cool to work there though, because people from all over the world come to Altoona to see the Horseshoe Curve. Yeah. And it's such a cool thing that we have that history. They have these like wax figurines of the people. And I remember like when I went in there, I didn't know how, they didn't have me turn on the lights for the whole building. I would just turn on the lights for like in the gift shop when I was like opening the registers. And I remember like getting there really early and being like, I'm going to explore every floor, and walking around at night, like and the lights aren't on, and seeing the wax figurines, and just like waiting for something to happen. But that was a fun little job working there. Yeah. A lot of history in that place.
Well, thanks, Heather. This is great.
Yeah, this was great. Yeah.
Thank you. This is amazing.
It was fun. It was fun to think of all these memories and like recap my life. I haven't really thought of things in a while.